It was one of those nights when the world felt heavier than usual. The rain poured down, and the neon signs of the small diner flickered outside as Daniel sat by the window, stirring his coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. His calloused hands trembled slightly as he counted the money in his wallet, $10.47. That was all he had left until his next paycheck, and even that wasn't guaranteed. Daniel wasn't a man who complained. He was a single father, raising his 7-year-old daughter Lily after his wife passed away 3 years ago. Since then, every day had been a battle, working double shifts at a mechanic shop, skipping meals so Lily could eat, and pretending everything was fine even when the bills screamed otherwise. But tonight was different. Tonight, for the first time in years, Daniel was going on a date. His friend, Mike, had convinced him to try it. "You deserve to be happy again, man. You can't live your whole life fixing engines and never your heart." Still, Daniel had laughed it off until he received a message from a woman named Emma. She was kind, funny, and down-to-earth in their texts. She didn't seem to care that he was a single dad or that his life wasn't perfect. And for reasons he couldn't explain, she made him feel alive again. Now, as he sat there, waiting for their first date, Daniel realized he didn't want to show up empty-handed. He looked around and spotted a small flower stand across the street. The rain had stopped, leaving the petals glistening under the streetlight. He walked over, his boots splashing through puddles. The old florist smiled gently. "Just one rose, sir?" Daniel nodded, handing over his last $10 bill. "Yeah. The best one you've got." He tucked the rose carefully into his jacket pocket and headed toward the cafe where they'd agreed to meet. He was nervous, more nervous than he'd ever been in his life. When he walked in, he saw her. Emma. She was sitting by the window, wearing a simple white dress, her dark hair pulled into a loose bun. She looked up, and her warm smile immediately eased his nerves. "Daniel?" she asked. He nodded, smiling shyly as he handed her the rose. "For you. I didn't want to come empty-handed." Her eyes softened as she accepted it. "It's beautiful." "Thank you." They talked for hours about life, dreams, and little moments that made them who they were. Daniel told her about Lily, about losing his wife, about struggling but never giving up. Emma listened, truly listened, and Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. What he didn't know was that Emma wasn't just a kind woman. She was the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the city, worth millions. But she didn't tell him that. Not yet. She wanted to know who he was when money wasn't in the picture. As the night ended, Daniel apologized, embarrassed that he couldn't even afford dessert. Emma smiled softly. "Daniel, I had the best evening I've had in years. You gave me something money can't buy: honesty." They said goodbye outside the cafe. Daniel walked home on the cold night, his heart lighter than his wallet, unaware that his life was about to change forever. Chapter 2: The Truth Behind the Smile. A week passed, and Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Emma. They texted daily, short, warm messages that kept him going through the long days at the garage. Lily noticed her father smiling more, humming while cooking, even laughing again. "Daddy," she said one evening, "you should invite her over. Maybe she'll bring cookies." Daniel chuckled. "Maybe, sweetheart. We'll see." A few days later, Emma asked if she could come by his shop to see him. Daniel panicked. His workplace was messy, grease on the floors, old tools piled up, but he agreed. When she arrived, she didn't flinch at the dirt or the noise. Instead, she smiled proudly as she watched him fix a car with the same dedication he gave to everything in his life. "You're amazing at this," she said softly. He shrugged. "It's just fixing cars." "No," she replied. "It's fixing problems. That's rare." They sat outside afterward, sharing a sandwich he'd made from home. Emma seemed lost in thought before finally saying, "Daniel, there's something I haven't told you." He looked at her curiously. She took a deep breath. "I'm the CEO of GreenTech Innovations. I know it might sound crazy, but I didn't want you to see me for what I have. I wanted you to see me for who I am." Daniel froze. "Wait, you're that Emma Richards?"
The one from the news? The millionaire?
She nodded, her eyes searching his face for judgment.
But Daniel didn't say anything for a moment.
Then he smiled weakly.
So, you went on a date with a guy who had $10 to his name and grease on his hands? Emma laughed through tears.
And it was the best date of my life.
Daniel's heart raced. I don't know what to say. You could have anyone, Emma.
She took his hand gently.
I don't want anyone. I want someone real. Someone like you.
From that moment, things began to change, not because of money, but because of trust. Emma quietly helped Daniel expand his small garage into a full-fledged workshop, though she never flaunted her wealth. Daniel insisted on paying her back slowly, and Emma admired his pride. Lily adored her, too. She called Emma Auntie Em, and soon, their home wasn't just filled with laughter but love. Months later, on a sunny morning, Daniel stood in the same flower shop where he'd bought that first rose. This time, he wasn't spending his last $10. He was buying a bouquet of 100 roses. That evening, at the cafe where it all began, he knelt down and said, "Emma Richards, you changed my life when you smiled at a man who had nothing.
Will you marry me?"
Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "You had everything that mattered already, Daniel."
Yes.
As the world outside buzzed with noise and neon lights, two people sat in that small cafe, proof that love doesn't see wallets or titles, only hearts.